So good evening, Professor. We are Team 14. We will be here presenting the visualization of our choice, and we'll be critiquing it on the 4 pillars of visualization. And myself, Prapti, and we have Abhinav as well. So I'll be just starting ahead with the presentation. So if you switch to the next slide. So as you have already iterated, the 4 pillars of effective communication are purpose, structure, content, and formatting. So we have rightly critiqued our visualization on these 4 aspects. So if we just present the visualization that we have selected for this on the next slide. So this is the visualization that we have selected. We both quite like this visualization because of the multi-dimensional aspects of the data that is being depicted in this visualization. So this visualization is about the difference percentage gap between the critic and the audience rating. The x-axis represents the difference between the critic and the audience rating, and the y-axis represents the year of release of the movies. And there's a third dimension, which is a budget of the movie, which is depicted by the size of the circles. And there's also a fourth dimension, which is a genre of the movie. So the yellow depicts the comedy, and likewise we have the lilac representing the horror, and etc. So this is the visualization that we will be critiquing in this presentation. So if we just move ahead to the next slide. So the purpose. So one thing that was very unique and different about this visualization was that we always look at critic and Rotten Tomato ratings and the IMDb ratings differently. And we never really think about the movies that have high critic ratings, but very low audience rating. So this visualization actually puts forth the point in a very interesting yet simplistic manner, that it just lays across a message and also presents different dimensions in a very, very clear and concise manner. So that's the whole intent of this visualization, really. And the choice, everything for this visualization, right from the choice of colors to the dimensions to the way they have really presented this, is really a very good example of effective visualization, because without even having to explain anything, the user just quickly understands the main intention of this visualization. So if we go ahead with the, so as we see on the right, the movies that have the highest critic rating, highest difference between the critic rating and the audience rating are depicted on the right. So basically the movies that are on the right, they're kind of underrated because they are heavily acclaimed by the critics, but not so much by the audience. So that's what the scale represents. Now talking about the content and the data for this visualization. So the data for this visualization was taken from Rotten Tomatoes, and it was a relational database in which all this data was stored and was used to present this visualization. So as we can see in the raw data, we have a couple of fields such as movie. The column B represents the Rotten Tomatoes critic rating, C represents the audience's rating, and the column D represents the percentage gap. And then we have the budget, year, and the genre. So all of these dimensions have been beautifully presented in this graph. And as you can see on the right as well, this is just how the data ties to the visualization. Now I'll just pass it on to Abhinav to explain the other aspects of the visualization.
Hey, everybody. So I'll be taking over from here. So as we discussed as part of purpose, it's an important aspect for the creator of the visualization to keep in mind who the visualization is for. So if the target audience for this visualization was an avid moviegoer or a movie enthusiast, then another kind of data that they would be interested in, like myself, would be which movies were actually really good. and ones with high ratings relatively that I would like to see. For example, here we can see that if we compare Shaun the Sheep movie, which is at the top, and Extract, which is at the bottom of this infographic, we'd be able to see that the difference between the audience rating and the critics rating is higher for Extract. However, if we look at the absolute ratings, Shaun the Sheep movie is doing really well with ratings almost as close to 100%. So it's a movie that I'd want to see anyway. So this was just a visualization that we created just to make sure that this is an aspect of the data that was not being represented by the existing visualization. And if in any way possible, this dimension could have been displayed, it might have been of use to at least some audience like me. The next one pillar is structure, and it just essentially just talks about how do we best reveal the most important data and relationships between the data points. It essentially just helps us identify the most meaningful layout and how the axis can be represented. As we can see here, a lot of data has been represented in just two axes, which is extremely helpful, as three-dimensional data is not something that's perceived well by human beings, so that would have been a problem. There are certain other aspects that are part of the structure that jumped out at us. The most important being the budget itself. So the budget is, as Prapti said before, has been represented by the size of the bubbles here. So the bigger bubbles had a higher budget. For example, the movie Noah had a higher budget, and in comparison, Mr. Turner, the other one, had a very small one. The other one is then the x-axis representation, which is just the difference in percentage of the ratings that critics gave for a movie as compared to the audience that gave ratings for the same movie. Apart from that, the y-axis represents the time in years. So, for example, the movie Colossal came out in 2017 as compared to Walk Hard, which came out in 2007. All of this just jumps right out. So it is a job really well done by the visualization creator. Finally, talking about formatting. Now, we talked about the three pillars: structure, purpose, as well as content. Everything else definitely gets covered as part of formatting. Formatting just basically talks about how it should look and feel, the visualization itself, and how it will be consumed. It also helps make the data and relationships accessible and makes the more important aspects of the data visible to us. So that's what this visualization has attempted at doing for us. So as you can see, the colors are also extremely bright, and the creator of the visualization just tries to make sure that it is as obvious as possible to differentiate between two different colors. Also, one thing that we thought could have been improved was the granularity in the x-axis, which we thought could have been a little more granular. That would have helped identify exactly where the movies land in terms of the difference in critic ratings as compared to the audience. But otherwise, we thought that the visualization was formatted really well, and it seems aesthetically pleasing, as well as the data jumps right out at us, and the colors also seem accessible to people who could be partially colorblind as well. So that is all from us. Thank you from Prapti and myself, and hope you liked the presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Was
Recording.
yeah.